Stop! Don't touch that button. The words exploded from Marcus Kane's chest as he crashed through the emergency exit door on the 38th floor of Sterling Tower. His security guard uniform was drenched with sweat, his radio crackling with confused chatter, and his lungs screaming from sprinting up 17 flights of stairs in under 4 minutes. Victoria Hayes froze, her manicured finger hovering millimeters from the elevator call button. At 42, she was the youngest chief technology officer in Sterling Innovation's 50-year history, and right now she was staring at Marcus like he'd lost his mind. "Excuse me?" Her voice carried that particular edge of someone who wasn't used to being yelled at by security personnel. "Before we continue, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. We love connecting with our global community." Marcus bent over, hands on his knees, desperately trying to catch his breath. "The elevator. There's something. You can't use it." Victoria's expression shifted from irritation to concern. She glanced at her phone. 10:47 p.m. The building was nearly empty except for late-night workers like herself and the skeleton security crew. "What's wrong with the elevator? Give me a second." Marcus straightened up, his dark eyes intense. "I was doing rounds in the mechanical substation. Level B3. There's a device attached to the primary elevator shaft, your elevator, the Executive Express." "A device? What kind of device?" "The kind with wires and a countdown timer." The words hung in the air between them like a death sentence. Victoria's phone slipped from her fingers, clattering against the marble floor. "You're saying there's a bomb?" "I'm saying there's something that shouldn't be there, and it's connected to the cables that hold your elevator. And unless I'm completely wrong, which I pray to God I am, you have approximately 36 minutes before something very bad happens." For 3 heartbeats, Victoria stared at him. Her brilliant mind, the one that had designed revolutionary encryption algorithms and pioneered quantum computing protocols, raced through possibilities, probabilities, and the terrifying realization that this might actually be real. "Show me," she said. They took the stairs. Victoria kicked off her designer heels and carried them, keeping pace with Marcus in her stockinged feet. Neither spoke for the first several flights, the only sound their footfalls echoing in the concrete stairwell. "How did you find it?" Victoria finally asked as they passed the 25th floor. "Pure accident," Marcus replied, his hand gripping the railing. "One of the junior guards reported flickering lights on B3. I went down to check the breaker panel, and I saw the access panel to the elevator mechanics was ajar. That's not normal. We keep those locked." "And you investigated?" "I'm former Army EOD explosive ordnance disposal. 5 years in Afghanistan. You develop instincts about things that don't look right." He glanced back at her. This didn't look right. Victoria processed this information, recalculating her assessment of the man leading her down these stairs. "Why not call the police? FBI? Why warn me?" "Because whoever did this knew your schedule. The device is set to trigger at 11:23 p.m. exactly. You always leave at 11:20 after your Tuesday night development meetings. I've worked this building for 2 years. I know everyone's patterns." A chill ran down Victoria's spine. Someone's been watching me. Someone who wanted this to look like a tragic accident. Old building, aging infrastructure, terrible elevator malfunction. Your death would have been on every news channel by midnight. Investigated for months. Probably ruled mechanical failure. They reached the lobby level but continued down into the basement levels. The temperature dropped. The walls changed from polished corporate elegance to industrial concrete and exposed piping. "I need to see it," Victoria said. "I need to know this is real." Marcus led her through a maze of service corridors until they reached a heavy metal door marked "Authorized Personnel Only." He swiped his security card and pushed it open. The mechanical room hummed with the sound of electrical systems and HVAC units. Marcus pulled out a flashlight and led Victoria to the far corner where thick steel cables ran through the ceiling, the lifelines of the executive elevator. "There," he said. illuminating a small black box attached to one of the cable housings. Victoria leaned in close, careful not to touch anything. The device was professionally made, no exposed wires, clean soldering, military-grade components, and prominently displayed on its face. A digital timer showing 31:47 and counting down. "Oh my God," she whispered. "This is real. This is actually real." "Military composition," Marcus said quietly. "Probably C4 or something similar. Small amount, but positioned perfectly to sever the main cables. Anyone in the elevator when it detonates falls 38 floors." Victoria's legs went weak. She grabbed onto a nearby pipe for support. Who would do this? Why? That's what we need to figure out. But first, Marcus pulled out his phone. "I'm calling this in." "Wait." Victoria's hand shot out, grabbing his wrist. "Think about what you just said. Someone knew my schedule. Someone had access to this room. Someone knew exactly how to sabotage this specific elevator. Which is why we need professionals. Which is why we need to be very careful about who we trust." Victoria's mind was racing now, patterns forming. 6 people knew I'd be working late tonight. My assistant, my deputy CTO, the head of security, the facilities manager, and 2 board members who insisted on tonight's emergency development meeting. Marcus lowered his phone slowly. "You think it's someone inside? I think it's convenient that a mysterious device appears on the exact night I'm presenting encryption protocols that would revolutionize data security. Protocols worth billions if stolen or eliminated." She met his eyes. "I think I've been a target, and this isn't the first attempt." "What do you mean?" Victoria's jaw tightened. 3 months ago, my car was in for service. The brakes were fine when I dropped it off, completely failed when I picked it up. I was lucky, managed to avoid crashing. The service center said it was impossible, that someone must have tampered with them after I drove away. "Did you report it?" "To who?" "The head of security assured me it was paranoia. The police said without evidence, there was nothing to investigate." She gestured at the device. "This is my evidence." Marcus looked at the countdown, 30:15. "We still need help. I know a guy, retired FBI, runs a private security firm now. He's clean, trustworthy. Call him." "But Marcus." Victoria's expression was steel. "We don't leave this building. Whoever did this thinks I'm going to die in 30 minutes. Let's use that." 22 minutes later, the building's main power died. Marcus and Victoria were in his security office, reviewing access logs on his computer when every screen went black. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. "That's not a coincidence," Marcus said, already moving toward his equipment locker. "The backup generators should have engaged immediately." Victoria's fingers flew across her phone. "Someone's locked them out remotely. Can you override it?" "Not from here. I'd need physical access to the main server room." A sound made them both freeze. Footsteps in the hallway, measured and purposeful. Marcus pulled Victoria behind his desk and drew his service weapon. He put a finger to his lips as the footsteps stopped outside his door. The doorknob rattled. Then a voice. "Marcus, it's David. Open up." David Chin, head of security for Sterling Tower. Marcus's boss. Marcus met Victoria's eyes. She shook her head sharply. "David, now's not a good time," Marcus called out. "I need to know what you found in the mechanical room. I saw it on your activity log before the power cut." Marcus's blood ran cold. Activity logs weren't accessible to anyone except, unless David had administrator access he shouldn't have. "Just checking on some equipment issues," Marcus said, keeping his voice steady. "Nothing major." "Marcus, I know about the device. I know Miss Hayes is with you. We need to talk about this." Victoria whispered urgently. "Server room. We go now." Marcus nodded. There was a second exit from his office, leading to a maintenance corridor. As quietly as possible, They slipped out while David continued talking through the door. The corridors were nightmarish in emergency lighting. Shadows everywhere. Red lights casting everything in blood-colored hues. They moved quickly but carefully toward the server room on the 15th floor. "How does he know you're with me?" Victoria hissed as they climbed the emergency stairs. "The same way he knew to cut power right after we started looking at access logs. Someone's been monitoring us." They reached the 15th floor. Marcus checked the hallway, empty, and they ran for the server room. Victoria's access card worked. They ducked inside, and she immediately went to the main terminal. "How long to restore power?" Marcus asked, positioning himself by the door. "5 minutes if I'm lucky. But I'm going to do something else first." Her fingers flew across the keyboard. "I'm pulling all security footage from the past week. If David or anyone else accessed that mechanical room, it'll be recorded. Timers at 18 minutes. I know. I'm working as fast as I can." Marcus watched through the small window in the door. The hallway remained empty, but his instincts screamed that they were running out of time in more ways than one. "Got it," Victoria breathed. 3 people accessed the mechanical room in the past 72 hours who shouldn't have. David Chun, facilities manager Robert Voss, and... She paused. "Oh no." "Who?" "My deputy CTO, Alan Ferris. He's my second in command. I've worked with him for 5 years." Marcus watched her face pale. "I'm sorry. Wait, there's more." She pulled up another file. "These are internal emails. Alan's been corresponding with someone at TechCore Industries, our biggest competitor. They're discussing eliminating obstacles to acquisition. Your encryption protocols. If I die, Alan becomes acting CTO. He could authorize the sale of our technology. Claim he's stabilizing the company during a crisis." Victoria's voice shook with fury and betrayal. "He's selling us out for what? Money? A position at TechCore? Probably both. How much are your protocols worth? Conservatively, $2 billion. More if properly weaponized." Marcus whistled low. "That's a hell of a motive." Timer. 16 minutes. Victoria's hands moved faster. "I'm downloading everything to an encrypted cloud backup. If something happens to us, at least there's evidence." She paused. "Your FBI friend, is he close?" Said 20 minutes. Called him 30 minutes ago. So he's here or almost here. Good. She hit several more keys. "Power's coming back. And I've locked down all elevators remotely except the freight lift. If David and Alan want to come after us, they'll have to take stairs." The lights flickered and came back on. Marcus blinked against the sudden brightness. "Now what?" he asked. Victoria stood up. Her expression transformed from fear to cold determination. "Now we make them think they won. Come on." Victoria's plan was insane, brilliant, and terrifying in equal measure. "You want to do what?" Marcus stared at her. "I want to trigger the device early. Safely. Make them think it worked." They were in the elevator control room now, with Victoria examining the override systems. The timer showed 12 minutes. "Explain how that's safe," Marcus said. "The executive elevator has an emergency brake system, mechanical, completely separate from the cables. If the cables are cut, these brakes engage automatically and lock the car in place. If they work, they're tested monthly. They'll work." Victoria's fingers flew across the control panel. "I can send the elevator to the ground floor, empty. When the device detonates, the car drops maybe 6 inches before the brakes catch it. Loud, dramatic, but harmless. And David and Alan think you're dead." "Exactly. We call your FBI friend, have him waiting. When they come to confirm their handiwork, we have them." Marcus thought about it. The timer showed 11:08. "What about cameras? Won't they see the cars empty?" "I've been looping footage for the past 10 minutes. As far as anyone monitoring can tell, I got into the elevator 5 minutes ago. She smiled grimly. Perks of being CTO? I designed our security systems. Okay, let's do this. But we need to be ready for them to panic when they realize it failed. Victoria nodded. The freight elevator, we take it down to the lobby. We'll be waiting when they arrive. They worked quickly. Victoria programmed the executive elevator to descend to the ground floor, then locked in the command. Marcus coordinated with his FBI contact via text, giving their exact position and plan. Timer, 8:23. They rode the freight elevator down, the ancient mechanism groaning and creaking around them. If this goes wrong, Victoria started. It won't. But if it does, I need you to know you saved my life tonight. Whatever happens next, you're a hero. Marcus met her eyes. I'm not a hero. I'm just a guy who saw something wrong and couldn't walk away. That's exactly what makes you a hero. The freight elevator shuddered to a stop on the ground floor. They positioned themselves in the lobby, hidden behind the security desk with a clear view of both the executive elevator and the main entrance. Timer, 4:47. Any second now, Victoria whispered. They waited. The building was silent except for the hum of air conditioning and their own breathing. Timer, 2 o'clock. Marcus saw them first, two figures entering through the main doors. David Chun and Alan Ferris, both wearing nervous expressions and checking their phones repeatedly. Timer, 1 o'clock. They're early, Marcus murmured. They want to be here to see it. Victoria's hand found his, gripping tight. Timer, 0:30. David and Alan positioned themselves near the executive elevator, watching the display screen showing the car's position. They thought Victoria was inside, descending to her death. Timer, 0:10, 0:09, 0:08. The explosion wasn't loud. More of a muffled crack followed by a metallic screech as the emergency brakes engaged. The whole building shuddered slightly. The executive elevator display went dark. David and Alan exchanged looks of grim satisfaction. It's done, Alan said, his voice carrying in the empty lobby. She's dead. The emergency response will take at least 45 minutes to an hour, David replied. We call it in, act shocked. By the time they recover the body, you'll have authorization to negotiate with TechCore. What about the device? Any evidence? The explosion destroyed itself. All they'll find is severed cables and a tragic accident. Marcus was already calling it in, his phone on silent mode, watching as FBI agents moved into position outside the building. Victoria had her own phone out, recording every word. $2 billion, Alan said with a smile that turned Victoria's stomach. Split 3 ways. Not bad for one night's work. 3 ways. David looked confused. Me, you, and our contact at TechCore. Robert was just a hired hand. We'll deal with him separately. Robert Voss, the facilities manager. They'd gotten them all. The FBI burst through the doors like a flood, weapons drawn, voices commanding. Federal agents. Hands up. Now. David and Alan's faces went from triumph to horror to disbelief in the span of 3 seconds. They saw the agents, saw Marcus and Victoria emerging from behind the security desk, and understood their mistake. No, Alan whispered. No, that's impossible. You were in the elevator. I watched you get in. You watched looped footage, Victoria said coldly, stepping forward. I designed those security systems, Alan. Did you really think I wouldn't know how to fool them? Ms. Hayes, the lead FBI agent approached. Are you all right? I'm fine, Agent Morrison. These two tried to kill me. It's all recorded. She held up her phone. Full confessions. The arrests were swift and efficient. As agents led David and Alan away in handcuffs, Alan kept screaming that it was all a misunderstanding, that they could explain. David stayed silent, his face ashen, knowing there was no explanation that would save them. Robert Voss was arrested at his home an hour later. 3 months passed. Marcus sat in his new office on the 20th floor, reviewing security protocols. He wasn't a guard anymore. Victoria had promoted him to Director of Security Operations, overseeing all safety measures for Sterling Tower and Sterling Innovation's 3 other facilities. The pay raise meant he could finally move his daughter Emma out of their cramped apartment and into a proper house with a yard. She'd be starting at a better school in the fall, and for the first time in years, Marcus could breathe without worrying about bills. A knock on his door pulled him from his thoughts. Victoria entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Peace offering," she said with a smile. "I know I've been bombarding you with security overhaul requests. It's your company. You're allowed to want it secure." Marcus accepted the coffee gratefully. "Besides, after what happened, I don't blame you for being thorough." Victoria sat down across from him. She looked different now, more relaxed, younger somehow. The weight of betrayal and near death had gradually lifted over the past months, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. "The trial starts next week," she said. "My lawyers say it's open and shut. David, Alan, and Robert are all looking at 20+ years. Good. They deserve it." TechCore's CEO was arrested this morning, by the way. The FBI found evidence that he orchestrated the whole thing. Apparently, this wasn't their first attempt at corporate assassination. Marcus's jaw tightened. How many others? At least 3 other tech CEOs over the past 7 years. Deaths ruled accidental or natural causes. The FBI is reopening all of them. Victoria's hands wrapped around her coffee cup. "I was lucky. I had you. You had your own smarts too. That plan to trigger the device early, that was all you. We made a good team." She paused, then pulled out an envelope. "Which brings me to why I'm really here." Marcus took the envelope, confused. Inside was a check for $500,000. He nearly dropped it. "Victoria, what?" "Reward money. The FBI was offering it for information leading to the arrest and conviction of those responsible for corporate espionage. You found the device. You saved my life. It's yours. I can't accept this." "Yes, you can. And you will. Because that's not all." She pulled out another document. "I'm also making you a partner in Sterling Innovations. 5% equity. After what you did, you've earned a stake in this company's future." Marcus stared at the papers in disbelief. 5% of Sterling Innovations was worth. He couldn't even calculate it. "Why?" he finally managed. "Because you're the only person in this entire building I trust completely. Because you ran up 17 flights of stairs to save a stranger's life. Because when everyone else, my deputy, my head of security, people I'd worked with for years, when they betrayed me, you stayed loyal to doing the right thing." Victoria's voice softened. "And because I've spent the last 3 months getting to know you better, working with you, rebuilding this company's security from the ground up. You're not just a hero, Marcus. You're a good man. The kind of person I want as a partner." Marcus felt emotion welling up in his chest. Since his wife had died 4 years ago, leaving him alone to raise Emma, he'd been surviving. Working multiple jobs, scraping by, too exhausted to think about anything beyond the next day. This was a future he'd never dared imagine. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough. "Thank you doesn't feel like enough, but thank you. Thank you for saving my life." Victoria stood up. "Now I have to go terrorize the board of directors with new security measures. Want to join me? They hate it when we team up." Marcus grinned. "Absolutely." The Sterling Tower dedication ceremony was packed. Every major news outlet had cameras rolling as Victoria stood at the podium, addressing the crowd gathered in the newly renovated lobby. "1 year ago," she began, "this building was the site of an attempted murder. Tonight, it stands as a symbol of resilience, integrity, and the power of doing what's right even when it's difficult." Marcus watched from the side, Emma beside him in her new dress, her hand gripping his proudly. His daughter had grown so much this year. Happier, healthier, thriving in ways he'd barely hoped possible. We've implemented new security measures, Victoria continued. Every major tech company is now adopting our protocols. But more importantly, we've built a culture where every person, regardless of their position, is empowered to speak up when they see something wrong. She looked directly at Marcus. A year ago, a security guard noticed something that didn't belong. He didn't ignore it. He didn't assume someone else would handle it. He acted. And in doing so, he not only saved my life but exposed a criminal conspiracy that had claimed other lives and threatened our industry. The crowd applauded. Emma squeezed Marcus's hand excitedly. Tonight, Victoria said, we unveil the Marcus Kane Center for Corporate Ethics, a training facility dedicated to teaching employees at all levels how to recognize and respond to threats, both physical and ethical. Because the greatest security measure isn't technology. It's people who care enough to act. More applause. Marcus felt his face flush with embarrassment and pride in equal measure. After the ceremony, as crowds mingled and Emma bounced around excitedly showing people her new shoes, Victoria pulled Marcus aside. There's something else, she said. Something I've been wanting to tell you. More surprises? I don't think my heart can take it. She laughed. Not a business surprise. A personal one. She took a breath. I know we've kept our relationship professional. I know there are optics to consider, power dynamics to navigate. But Marcus, this past year working with you, getting to know Emma, rebuilding everything together, I've fallen in love with you. Marcus's world tilted. He'd felt it too, had seen the way Victoria looked at him lately, the way she'd started finding excuses to work late when he was doing rounds, the way she'd shown up to Emma's school play last month and cheered louder than anyone. Victoria, I know it's complicated. I'm your boss. Well, sort of technically we're partners now, but still. And I know you're a widower, that you have Emma to think about. I'm not asking for anything to happen right now. I just needed you to know. Life's too short to not be honest about how we feel. Marcus looked at this incredible woman who'd survived an assassination attempt, rebuilt her company, and somehow found room in her heart for him and his daughter. Emma asked me about you last week, he said quietly. She wanted to know if you were my girlfriend. She said she hoped you were, because you're the first person who made me smile like the old daddy from before her mom died. Victoria's eyes glistened. What did you tell her? I told her I didn't know, but I wanted you to be. He took her hand. Victoria Hayes, would you like to be my girlfriend? She laughed, crying at the same time. That's the weirdest proposal I've ever heard. Not a proposal. Not yet. Let's start with dinner. Real dinner, not working through security protocols. You, me, and Emma. Pizza and a movie. Normal family stuff. I'd love that. She squeezed his hand. Fair warning though. I've never been particularly good at normal. Good thing I'm not either. Emma ran up at that moment, grabbing both their hands. Dad, Miss Victoria, they have the fancy cookies. Can we get some? Absolutely, Victoria said, letting Emma drag them toward the refreshments table. I hear the chocolate ones are excellent. Marcus watched his daughter bounce excitedly between them, chattering about cookies and her science project and how the ceremony had lights that looked like stars. He felt Victoria's hand warm in his own, saw the future opening up before them like a door he'd thought was permanently closed. 1 year ago, he'd run up 17 flights of stairs to warn a stranger about danger. Tonight, he stood in a lobby full of people celebrating that choice, holding the hand of a woman he loved, watching his daughter laugh. The wedding was small. Emma served as flower girl, taking her duties very seriously. Marcus's FBI friend Morrison walked Victoria down the aisle since she had no family of her own. The ceremony was in the Sterling Towers rooftop garden, the same building where their story began. As Marcus slipped the ring onto Victoria's finger, he thought about that night 3 years ago, the terrifying sprint up the stairs, the look on Victoria's face when she saw the device, the moment they'd chosen to trust each other against all logic and odds. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant said. They kissed to thunderous applause from the small gathering of friends and colleagues. Emma cheered loudest of all, jumping up and down with joy that her family was now official. Later, at the reception, Emma presented them with a drawing she'd made, 3 stick figures holding hands, labeled Dad, Victoria, and me, with a caption that read, "My family who saved each other." Marcus had to step away for a moment to compose himself. Victoria found him on the balcony overlooking the city. "You okay?" "More than okay. Just thinking about how much has changed." "Changed for the better." She leaned against him. 3 years ago, I was alone, building walls, trusting no one. Now I have you. I have Emma. I have a family. 3 years ago, I was barely surviving, working 3 jobs, drowning in bills, too tired to imagine anything better. Marcus pulled her close. "You gave me a life worth living. You saved my life first. We saved each other." From inside, they could hear Emma's laughter mixing with music and celebration. Their friends, their family, their future. Victoria raised her champagne glass. "To bad elevators and good choices." Marcus clinked his glass against hers. "To 17 flights of stairs and not walking away. To love found in the most unexpected places. To everything that matters." They stood together on that balcony, the city lights stretching out before them like promises waiting to be kept. Somewhere below, in the building where it all began, elevators continued to run smoothly with triple redundant safety systems. Security protocols protected employees. Training programs taught people to speak up and act. But more than any system or protocol, what protected them now was trust. The kind of trust built when 2 strangers chose to believe in each other against impossible odds. The kind of trust that saved lives and built futures. Emma burst onto the balcony. "You guys! They're cutting the cake. Come on." Marcus and Victoria let themselves be pulled back inside, back to the celebration, back to the life they'd built together from ashes and near tragedy. Because sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin with the simplest act, seeing danger and refusing to walk away. Sometimes saving someone's life means finding your own. And sometimes, just sometimes, yelling, "Don't get in the elevator," changes absolutely everything. If this story moved you, remember to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Share it with someone who needs reminding that courage shows up in ordinary moments and that one good choice can change everything. Every single day, we face moments where we can walk away or step forward. The question is, when your moment comes, what will you choose? Thanks for watching, and remember, heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear security uniforms and run upstairs when everyone else takes the elevator. See you in the next story.